Ich freue mich, dass Professor Olivier Blanchard als einer unserer diesjährigen Starredner hier zu uns gekommen ist. Der frühere MIT-Hochschullehrer dürfte den meisten als ehemaliger Leiter der Forschungsabteilung des Internationalen Währungsfonds bekannt sein. Olivier, thank you very much for being with us. You started your presentation here at the Congress, raising with a look in the rearview mirror, raising the question in connection with the topic of inflation, asking post-mortem or still too early. What is your answer?
It's not quite dead yet. I wish we could say it's a post-mortem, but there are still some dangers. In a number of countries, wage growth is still fairly high, too high to be consistent with the targets of the central banks, so that in principle, there is a need to slow down the economy just a bit. We could be lucky. It could be that productivity growth, for example, in the United States is higher, in which case it would be consistent with lower inflation. But we can't be sure. I think the central banks just have to watch and see whether more tightening or slower decrease in interest rates is needed. We'll have to see. I'm optimistic, but not sure.
But what does the future hold? Should we expect episodes of sharply rising prices similar to those of the past 2.5 years?
I think we should. At least we should be ready for it because of the geopolitics. It's quite possible that some sea channel is closed, leading to very high prices, for example. So I think it can come back. Maybe not on the scale we have seen, but it can come back. The good news is how fast we were able to absorb these price shocks and how they are not leaving much of a legacy. And I think it's due to the fact that the central banks have established credibility, that long-run inflation expectations are very stable. So I would expect that we may see more episodes of the same kind. Sharp increase followed by a fairly quick decrease without the central banks having to tighten too much.
You have drawn attention to various paradoxes, so to say, between Europe and the US. What are they all about?
I'm not sure the word paradox is the right one, but clearly differences between the two. In the US, you have fairly strong private demand because of investment, partly because of consumption, because there is no fiscal consolidation in the works. In Europe, consumption is weaker, investment is weaker, there is going to be fiscal consolidation. So I would expect that the pressure from demand would be much stronger in the US than in Europe, which implies substantially higher interest rates in the US than in Europe for the few years to come.
You have, looking ahead, you have identified what you see as two dominant themes, two dominant topics. What are you thinking about?
I'm actually thinking of four of them, but two and two, I would say. In terms of politics, I think the rise of populist governments is surely a big issue in economic terms. Geopolitics is another big issue in economic terms. And then this is in an environment in which we have to do some incredible shift of the type of growth we have because of global warming and our fight to avoid it, and AI, artificial intelligence. And so it's this combination of these four factors that makes the world a bit difficult to predict.
Let's perhaps stay with the topic of public debt. Is the German approach of a debt break the right one in the current economic climate?
I think the answer is no. There surely is an urgent need to get the fiscal situation under control. And there are many countries which need to do the adjustment, but it should be done more slowly than the debt break implies. It's very difficult to decrease the deficit, for example, in my country, a primary deficit of 3% right away, which is what would be needed to stop the debt ratio from increasing. And there are two reasons not to want to do it. The first one is economic, which is if you have a dramatic fiscal consolidation, you take the risk of a recession, which you probably don't want to have at this stage in Germany. You had a short one before. And the other is political, which is that there is going to be a lot of unhappiness. Populist parties are going to use it. And so it has to be done steadily, credibly, but not at the pace implied by the debt brake.
You mentioned the mega topic of artificial intelligence. Can AI really lead to an increase of productivity and a rise in potential growth, which are currently being badly hit?
I think we really do not know, and that's reflected by the various pieces of research which are coming out. Some of them say, for example, that we could have an increase in productivity of 10% over 10 years, which would be 1% a year, which would be a very big number. Some say, no, it should be only 1% for 10 years, so which would be 0.1%. And we don't know. The studies are fairly good, but we're dealing with uncertainty. There are two issues: how much we can automatize the existing jobs, but the much more important issue is what new activities can we create, what new jobs can we create. And I think that's where we don't know. We have to play it by ear. My own view is, yes, there is potential for an increase in productivity growth, and that would make a substantial difference to the future of Europe.
Thank you very much for being with us.